Hey everyone, it's Kelly. I'm back today sharing another entry in my LA travel mini album that I have been creating. Today I'm going to be working on the intro page to Santa Monica, and then I'm also going to be doing a full page of journaling. So we're going to go ahead and start out with this large full page photo. So this is printed at 8.5 by 8.25, and I am going to create another flip out. I created a flip out in my last video, but I actually created this page before I created the last page that I created, the Beverly Hills flip out. And I learned from a mistake here that I'm going to make, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of walk you through how I changed my mind as I'm working on this and what I realized was more important to me with the flip out. So for right now, I'm just kind of getting everything laid out. I'm going to go ahead and get my photo adhered down to one of those strips that you can purchase from Citrus Twist. It just makes it so you can add it directly into the album without having to use a page insert. I'm creating another flip using just some plain white copy paper. I cut this down to about 2 inches, and then I'm going to add some adhesive onto the back side of my photo. Then I will adhere down the copy paper, and then I'm going to do the same exact thing on the opposite side of the spread. I'm just going to make sure that I sandwich that other piece of the copy paper between my photo and a pattern paper that I'm going to have on the outside of the flip. I slowed this down a little bit compared to my last video just so you could watch it a little bit more in detail. So this is only sped up at 2 times versus the rest of the video is sped up at 4 times speed. So I'm just getting my photo adhered down. I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess copy paper. You won't even be able to see it once I get everything adhered down. One tip that I do have if you are going to create a flip out like this is to make sure that you leave a little gap between your fold. That way your flap will lay completely flat and it won't want to buckle up a little bit. So I decided that I'm going to go with this seashell pattern paper, and that is from the Studio Calico Find Your Adventure Traveler's Notebook. I mentioned this in the last video, but I purchased that notebook and then I just went ahead and cut it apart, took it apart. I just removed the staples and then cut the pages down so I could fit them within this Citrus Twist, life crafted album. So now I'm just trying to figure out how I want to get things laid out. I realized once I had this flip or this flap created that I was hiding the photo, and it was the photo that I really wanted to make sure that I had on the front part of the spread. So I actually went ahead and reprinted the same photo, and I am going to use a landscape photo of it and then also a landscape photo of the Santa Monica Pier taken at a distance. So that is something that I made sure when I made my flap for Beverly Hills, that I made sure that the focal point, the large part of the photo, was actually on the outside of the flap, so that way you could see the large photo and it wasn't hidden underneath the pattern paper. I'm fine that I have the same photo printed twice. One is a little bit larger than the other. I think it's totally fine, does not bother me one bit, but I did want to make sure that I had that photo of the 4 of us on the pier on the front part of the page because that is the main image that I wanted to display. So I felt like that seashell pattern was just competing a little bit with my photos. Even though it is a muted color, it's still a pretty busy design. So I decided just to take a piece of vellum and I'm just going to staple it right on top of that pattern paper. And I made sure to lift up the pattern paper from the photo so that way the staple did not go through the pattern paper and through the photo. I'm just trimming off any excess. I will use my scissors just so I can get a little bit closer there, knowing that I won't clip the photo or the fold that I had created. So now I'm going to go ahead and get my photos added. I'm just going to use a couple embellishments on the outside of this. I have a ticket that says Boardwalk and then a puffy sticker. Those are both from an older Citrus Twist kit. I'd kind of been hanging on to those knowing that I was going to be creating this mini album at some point. I keep all of my travel supplies and ephemera and those kind of things in an iris container. So anytime I get anything in a kit that I think that will work well for a travel themed album, I go ahead and just throw it into that iris container. So now I'm just making sure that it's going to lay in the album the way that I want it to. And it was at this point that I realized that I was off, that these photos were not going to be in the right order because we actually went to Beverly Hills before we went to Santa Monica, and I wanted to try to keep that in pretty chronological order. So I needed to figure out what I was going to do on the opposite side of that fold out. And I decided that I would just do a full page of journaling. I would kind of hit the high points of what we did in Beverly Hills and then also talk about what we did in Santa Monica, just kind of all on the same page. But I wanted it to be a little bit decorative. So I grabbed the stamp set. I think this is in the Traveler's Notebook kit from Studio Calico this month. It's a little ticket and it has a filler so you can add some color. So I stamped that out just a few times on copy paper, and I'm going to use a few different color inks. All of these inks are from Ali Edwards, and I will have links to them in the description below if you're interested. I chose the colors based off the ticket, the boardwalk ticket that I had on the right hand side of the spread. So there was some pink, some orange, and then a teal color. Now I'm going through just some stamps in my stash. This stamp here is the current stamp subscription for this month for Studio Calico. Their kits this month were a travel themed, so I was able to use that stamp, also a previous subscription stamp from Studio Calico, and I'm just using some travel themed icons to put in the center of those tickets. Not really any rhyme or reason. They don't necessarily have to go along with my journaling. I just picked ones that I thought would fit well in the spaces that I had available. I chose to stamp all of these icons on just plain white copy paper because my album was already getting so thick that I didn't want to add any more bulk than necessary. And because these are just going to be filled in with color, I didn't really have to worry about the whites matching, and I was totally fine with how this was turning out. I was okay that it was on a thinner paper. Now this will be outside the page protector as well, so it is a little bit more delicate, and I really wanted to make sure that they were adhered down nice and strong because they will get handled flipping through the album because they don't have anything protecting them. So I'm just going to finish up stamping down the icons, and like I said, I just use a lot of different travel icons, pretty much whatever would fit. This is a stamp set that was from a previous Documenter kit. That's a stamp set that was from Citrus Twist. I've used that a couple times in the album. This is the stamp set that was included in the Find Your Adventure Traveler's Notebook kit that I've been using throughout this album. It's what a lot of the pattern papers had come from. So once I get these all stamped out, I'm going to go ahead and just fussy cut out all of the tickets, and I'm going to start arranging them, kind of getting an idea of how I want to place them on the paper that I'm going to add the journaling. I am going to use colored cardstock to add the journaling on there. Again, I just wanted to add some color versus just using plain white cardstock for my journaling. Now, I originally thought that I would stamp a title above each section of the journaling because, as I mentioned, I was going to have a section that talked about Beverly Hills and then another section that talked about Santa Monica. So I'm stamping out 90210. I thought that that would be a fun title versus stamping out Beverly Hills, and it wouldn't take up as much room. And now I'm just using a pencil to draw around where those tickets are going to be, so that way I know how to place my journaling. And I did use Photoshop to measure that out. And I realized once I got into Photoshop and started typing the journaling that I had a lot more to say than I originally had planned on. And the title was just going to be too large, especially when I took into consideration that I was going to have to stamp out Santa Monica. So I just cut another piece of the same cardstock. That's actually a paper that was included in the Sunny Days Maggie Holmes project pad, and it worked out fine. It was a 12 by 12 paper, so I had plenty left over. So now I have the tickets arranged. I originally thought that I was just going to use 3 on each side, but I liked the way 4 looked better, and I just used some washi tape to hold them down in the center of the spread, and then use my sewing machine to stitch down the outside edges. And then I am going to use my tape runner to make sure that those tickets are adhered down. Normally I would like them to have lift and have texture, but as I mentioned, these are going to be outside the page protector, so they're going to be handled a lot more this way versus being inside the page protector. Now I need to try to figure out what I want to add as a title, and I go through my stamps. I thought that maybe I would use one of the titles from the vacation stamp sets that I have, but they weren't quite large enough and quite bold enough. So I end up settling on this Ali Edwards stamp set, and I'm just going to stamp it with black ink. And it had those little doodle lines included in that stamp set, and I thought that that was a nice addition. It gave the layout a little bit of play and a little bit of whimsy. Now I'm just trimming out any of the excess off the edge there, and I'm going to go ahead and get this adhered down. Again, it's going to be outside the page protector, so I need to get it adhered down on the back side of the previous page, and the previous page is the Beverly Hills flip out. So coming up here in just a moment, I'm going to have some still shots where you can see things in a little bit more detail and a little bit close up. I do want to encourage you, if you are liking this series, to please give this video a like. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. I will have, I think, at least 2 more process videos, and I have completed the album at this point, so I will have a final flip through of the album as well. But again, I know I say this in almost every video, but by liking the video and leaving a comment, that lets me know that I should continue investing in these videos. So it really does help if you leave me some feedback. So I just want to say again, as always, I appreciate you so much for watching and for taking time to leave the comments and taking time to like the videos. It really does mean so much. I'll be back again soon with a new process video. Have a great day.